there are growing concerns over undocumented foreign nationals in the country. A group called Operation Dudula took to the streets of Hillbrow in Johannesburg today, marching against crime. They claim some foreign nationals are taking part in criminal activities. eNCA senior reporter Aviwe Mtila has been covering that story for us, and he joins us now. Aviwe, good afternoon. We understand there was some sort of a scuffle between police and Operation Dudula. What led to that situation?
Certainly, Mfunda, we saw tear gas, rubber bullets, as well as water cannons being dispersed towards the members of Operation Dudula. I would understand that they went in early at about 10 a.m. in the streets of Hillbrow, which are notorious for crime. They said they were targeting your drug lords. They were targeting the hijacked buildings as well as the informal traders in the various taxi ranks, saying that the majority are foreign nationals. Basically, they're targeting undocumented foreign nationals, which we do understand the majority reside in the streets of Hillbrow, which has now become synonymous with crime that happens in and around a lot of places, even in Johannesburg. So they were met with resistance from the police, something that they say they couldn't understand, because for once now, they say it's the first time that they've been required to produce a Section 205 documentation that allows them, in fact, to go ahead with self-protest. They've been, of course, famous for, in regular times, Operation Dudula, for having such raids and such discussions and going out to the streets in petition over foreign nationals. But this time, they say, now that they're in Hillbrow, they've been met with such strong force from the police. Why? Because they say the police are in cahoots with a lot of these drug lords and some of these criminals. So they're claiming that the police have now come to the defense of these criminals in stopping them in conducting these raids, that they were quite adamant that they were going to go and clear up, saying that they're cleaning up Hillbrow. So they've now had to backtrack, saying that they'll go then and acquire that documentation, Section 205, and then go back to the streets of Hillbrow next week. Saturday is a promise.
But one would assume even the foreign nationals residing in Hillbrow would actually resist such. So was it not even a dangerous situation where you find these Operation Dudula members going on their own? I mean, what are they armed with beyond numbers? Would this not be adequately done, be a program that is run by the police?
So, Mfundo, previously, I remember one such operation that I myself covered, I think in the June 16, just last year, where they went into Soweto, various parts, going into the various houses, the drug dens there. They were actually working alongside with the police. Hence, they say now they don't understand why the police now will require the Section 205. Yet there have been previous operations where they've acted side by side with the police, going into these drug dens, going into these brothels, unearthing some of the rot that happens in these areas. I actually got to speak to some of the foreign nationals even, who claim that they're all African. It's the African continent. If you chase them outside of Africa, which continent are you expecting them to go to? So the march didn't even last in terms of moving it into the various streets. It was actually one street that they moved into. They made headway of about some 200 meters before they were then met with that force from the police. They claiming, of course, that the police now are in cahoots with these criminals. Hence, they have this strong stance in making sure that Operation Dudula doesn't go forth, especially in the notorious Hillbrow, and where those concerns, even in the livelihoods of the members themselves, given how synonymous with crime that area is, Hillbrow in particular.
Were some of the foreign nationals actually perhaps defending themselves, saying they are in fact documented? Because, like you say, I heard a bit earlier where one gentleman was adamant that it is the continent of Africa and they should be actually allowed to reside anywhere on the continent.
Some of them are even saying that they're happy that there are such operations in terms of unearthing the rot that they themselves have to live under in those streets of Hillbrow. What they don't want is the force that it's met with, the force that comes from the likes of Operation Dudula when going ahead with such missions. Speaking to some of them on the ground, they highlight how they themselves are African, but there wasn't an encounter. It was quite guarded, I must say, by the police. There was a concerning situation before 10 o'clock, when some members of the Operation Dudula were meeting other members. We heard what sounded like gunshots ring out, and that's where the police force then came in quite heavily, speaking to some of the leaders, making sure that they then to gather at the park and not move outside the park. Of course, forcefully Nhlanhla Lux and some of his members then made headway going in outside the park, where they were met then with this force. Of course, some of the members on the ground were shot by those rubber bullets. One concerning incident, one gogo per se, an elderly lady who was hit with those water tankers. I got to speak to her, an elderly lady quite concerned about the drugs in the community, saying that the only reason that he is supporting this movement, she, I beg your pardon, is supporting this movement is because of the drug peddling, something that she is quite against and wants that unearthed and basically stopped in the community. So you get the sentiments as why a majority of them are there. Of course, those job concerns that we're now seeing, especially with the bloated unemployment rate that we're seeing in the country, extreme measures that we are seeing. As we hear tomorrow, they'll be moving on to Orange Grove, I beg your pardon, and then next week going back to Hillbrow. So extremes that South Africans are coming to in what we're seeing between the clash between South Africans and the foreign nationals over livelihoods, basically.
All right, Aviwe, thank you very much for that update. That's senior reporter Aviwe Mtila just giving us an update on Operation Dudula that took place this afternoon, a bit earlier on in Hillbrow. To this now.